Hi everyone. We are back. Thank you for watching. Uh, as you know, it's Benny Shakes Things Up. Um, if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, please like it and share it if you wish. Um, Also, I have got a donate link along the screen in a minute because some of our comedians do this full time, and it would be nice if some of you could donate some money. It doesn't have to be big money. It could be a quid or a fiver. I'll leave it up to you. So this week we've got two lovely female comedians. My first comedian is my very good friend Elizabeth Vantaa Black. I think it's 8 months ago she was in a car crash and she ended up being disabled. So I took her under my wing and taught her how to be disabled. So I will bring her in now if I can remember how to do it.
Hey, we're not worthy, Benny. My great guru.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Really well.
Good. You're in Finland, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I've gone home.
Good. You got there all right then?
Yeah, after 8 months of hospital and then lockdown, finally managed to escape.
Cool. So shall we get the next guest in the room and then we go round the room and find out what everyone's disability is? Or like I like to say, our superpower. So this lady, the very first time I saw her was on YouTube. I think it was 4 years ago. And I thought, well, if she can do it, why can't I? And then it took another 3 years for me to actually get on stage. So I'll let you, Tanya, tell you what disability she's got. So welcome to the stage, shall I say, Tanya Lee Davis.
Yay!
Thank you.
Yay!
You're right.
Let a fireside chat with you guys.
Yeah. I forgot to say Tanya is back in America in Florida, so I feel like we're
we have an international group.
Yeah.
I am in Florida. It's like 95 degrees Fahrenheit outside, but my dad just recently installed a fake fireplace for whatever reason, and so he's happy that I'm actually showing it off to the world. So, but outside, no fireplace is needed.
No, because you've got, is it alligators or crocodiles?
We have what? We have alligators here. Yes.
Alligator.
Yeah,
right.
we've been fishing a lot, my partner and I, and where the boat dock where we've been fishing, there's been a couple of baby alligators, and they like our fishing hooks. So we ended up pulling, I think, 2 in, but they're this big, which is small
Yeah,
for an alligator.
yeah.
We saw an 8-foot one out in the lake 2 days ago, and that was massive. That was like Captain Hook, Peter Pan type of alligator.
Because they taste like chicken, don't they?
I have no. Well, these are all wild, so I mean,
All
they'll eat
right.
whatever the heck's in the lake,
Oh,
including me. I'm just a snack.
well,
When I was
go on.
When I lived in Papua New Guinea, someone for a joke put a baby alligator. I fell asleep and they put a baby crocodile. They'd tied his mouth together, but they put it next to my head. So when I woke up, there was this tiny baby. It did make me jump.
Scare the crap out of you.
So why don't we go round the room and we can explain what disabilities we've got. Everyone knows what I've got, but I will say if we've got any new people, I've got CP. That stands for cerebral palsy, and that means when I was born lack of oxygen in the brain, so my brain doesn't work with my hands, hence Benny shakes. So yeah, so let's go to Elizabeth.
Okay, so I, as you said earlier, was in a car crash.
Right.
I was hit all right hand side. I had 12 fractures, and probably in terms of the fractured pelvis means I'm not very mobile, and still I shut. That's like I've got a pretty good scar. I don't know. Can you see? That's my scar. That's mostly titanium now. So that's like I'm kind of a superhero. And somebody asked me on the way out here on the flight, they said, "What's wrong with you?" And I thought, my boyfriends have been asking me that for some years. But now it's like that kind of, well, actually, what's right with me is that I survived. It's not really what's wrong with me. I'm mended. I'm titanium woman. But probably the one that I'm most struggling with is the impact to my head, which has, I'm blind in this eye. So the visual impairment is very difficult to get used to, but also the head injury, so big scar here. But I'm very, very forgetful. And what it's taken out is my filter. So I just say what comes into my head.
That's fine. That's fine. Most people get away with that anyway. My sister last year, you can say anything. Why? Because you're disabled. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realise disabled people could get away with it, but I will take it.
Yeah, we all milk it. We'll milk it one way or another.
Yeah.
It's just natural.
What about you, Tanya?
Well, I was born with a form of dwarfism, a little person. I'm 3'6". There's over 200 different types of dwarfism, and mine is called diastrophic dysplasia. So it's kind of rare. It's like 1 in 120,000 births. And so obviously being born disabled, I just don't know any different. I was very independent, and my family, I was the only dwarf in the family, still am, and they were basically like, here you go, you just figure it out your own way. So I wasn't given any special treatment growing up. I mean, I was given adaptations and stuff at the school, but as far as just mentally, it was just like, you're on your own, figure it out. And I think that led to a lot of my independence and my sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, when my parents found out I had cerebral palsy, my mum just went, "Oh well, just get on with it, boy." So she treated me as normal as possible. I went to mainstream school and yeah, and I thank her for that
Yeah,
because
I think
it's
that's important.
made me the person I am today. So
Yep.
yeah, so um, so Tanya, as we're teaching Elizabeth about being disabled, um, what was it like at school for you? Because I don't want to upset you, but you've been in the industry for 35 years.
No, it was 30 years in January. This was my
30
anniversary.
years. So I don't want to offend you, but you've been around a
I've
bit.
been around
Around
many
a
ways.
bit.
Many, many.
So
Yes, I'm
what
very
was
proud of
it
that
like in
expertise.
America growing up with a disability?
Well, I actually grew up in Canada. I'm a
Right.
Canadian, and also I've been American for
Oh,
10 years.
sorry.
But, I feel very fortunate growing up in Canada. Like I said, with my type of dwarfism, we all have normal sized parents.
Yeah.
So, they just pushed me to do whatever I could. And, like I just didn't know any different. And because I was very social and I was really cute as a kid, like I looked like a real like Cupid doll. I was bald for the longest time, but once my hair grew, I was like strawberry blonde, and my mom used to put it up in ribbons. So I looked, I was tiny, so everybody was always fawning over me. So, I milked it all the time. I got away with a lot of things because of my looks, but I was very outgoing. I was always very social. I wanted to be part of the group. So I didn't let anything hold me back. I just did everything I could to my own ability. And, I think that that's important. I find it's different when you're born with a disability versus somebody that has acquired a disability or become disabled, because I can imagine that is a total mind screw. When you're born, you just don't know, you adapt. But when it's like, you've lived your life this way, and all of a sudden it
Yeah.
gets turned around, and now you've got to live it in a completely different way, and people start treating you differently. And Liz, this is, I can imagine. But I can't relate in that sense. And so I think with me personally, I've just been really straightforward with like, what do you want to know? I'm
Mm.
pretty much a no filter kind of gal myself, but I think that's great in the sense of educating people and everybody. You're quite curious, especially with little people right now. It used to be there was no little people on television, but now they're a dime a dozen. You've got all these like, the Little Women of Atlanta, and the Little Women of Los
Yeah.
Angeles, and the Little People Big World, and all these TV shows with little people. And it's because we live in a society of voyeurs, and so people are curious and they're nosy and they want to see, how do you wipe your ass? How do you do this? How do you do that? And that's I think it's interesting as well, because we as disabled people have had to come up with some ingenious things to make our lives easier. And people think, take turning on a light switch or whatever for granted, when I have to use a stick or I use my cane, and I'm putting holes through the wall trying to turn the light switch on. We just do what we have to do to adapt, but I feel like that's what you need to do to live a functional life. You just have to roll with the punches. If you get caught up in woe is me too much, or why did this happen? I mean, obviously, as in my teenage years, that was it's always tough for anybody that's a teenager. But then when you're kind of, as a girl, having crushes on boys, and they liked me, but they wouldn't acknowledge that they liked me in that way because it was just, it just didn't look cool to, but I find out later in my adult life that there was many boys that were like, oh, we really liked you. And I had crushes, but it's that interaction with the opposite sex or whoever you're attracted to that, that rejection. You have to learn to accept that. And it's not necessarily you. It's the other people's attitudes or their discomfort, right? And same with the people, your friends in general. They either get over it or they don't, and the people that accept you and that are your friends forget about all this. I'll go out with my friends and I'll go to an ATM and I'll give them my card and they go, why are you giving me your card? Because I can't reach the machine. And they're like, oh, sorry.
They forget, don't they? Yeah.
So, and I'm sure Liz right now is dealing with, just your friends in general. I mean, I know we're dealing with COVID, but, it's you're basically in a new chapter of your life. So it's not just you, processing what's going on. It's the people around you. And then, of course, you have to process how they're thinking about you differently. So, yeah, it's just, but if you've got the strength and you've got the mental fortitude and I think the perseverance and the will, the drive to make the best of your situation, that you can overcome anything, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth, I know you came disabled and then we got into lockdown, but before that, when you was out with friends, did you have any experiences, bad experiences where you wanted to get in somewhere, but you couldn't, or you could, but it was a struggle?
Yeah, I mean, you'll remember the very early days, Benny, because you were there when. So the first month I was in hospital, and then I was in quite a lot of pain. But then, if you remember, in February when there was Leicester Comedy Festival, and I kind of tried to get back into the scheme of things, and there I was with a Zimmer frame, and I think it was a shock. I think a lot of people who knew me before the crash found it a massive shock that this quite scary goth, which I was a very full-on, in-your-face kind of comedian, suddenly was quite fragile and vulnerable. And what I hadn't really realised was just how many stairs there are in comedy. And that we're upstairs, and it would take me ages to go upstairs. And then I found myself asking questions that I'd never, ever thought of, like, where's the loo, before I even go up the stairs. And that the loo is downstairs again. And that whole thing of being like a 5-year-old again, going, you better go to the toilet before you go upstairs. And suddenly all of these things that, I would have previous to the crash, run up and down the stairs, never thought about it. And suddenly your whole life has shifted. And I think other people also they didn't know how to relate to that, that not only was I quite visibly scarred, I mean, this has healed up now. It's that I think was a shock to people, but also the fact that I changed quite significantly, and everything. Yeah, it's not easy, but I just made jokes about it. My very first gig after the crash, I stood up and told jokes about the actual crash and the obsession that the medical profession had with my bowels. About the only thing that hadn't been injured in a car crash, and they just kept asking me about it. Have you opened your bowels today? And it's like, suddenly you have no privacy. Suddenly everything about you is public knowledge. And coming over on the plane, on the train, I had passenger assistance, and he said, "Oh, what on earth happened to you?" And I got so bored, really, of talking about the car crash. I just kind of whispered, "Never between the hippopotamus and the water." And just, but it's like the fact that they're in there with you they feel that they can ask you questions. Everybody's like, and suddenly I had no privacy. No, that was. So yeah, did that answer your question at all, Benny?
Yeah. Before we get into comedy, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. I've asked you two strong women on because I've got three lovely sisters. They are strong, they are hot-headed, but I love them dearly and I look up to them when I'm looking for a partner. I want someone with that personality. So, how has it been being disabled and being a female? I mean, I'm disabled, I'm a male, and I find it hard, but I'm a male, so it can't be that hard for me because we are still in a man's world in a way. So, how has it been, Tanya, for you?
Well, I've never really looked at it as a female male thing.
Right.
I mean, I'm in a very male dominated business,
Yeah.
but I always sort of believed that if you are good at what you do, the cream rises to the top. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter whether I'm a dwarf or whether it doesn't matter whether I'm a female. I have to grasp the opportunities that are given to me, and run with them. And then if something doesn't come from that, it's pretty much either my own fault or the circumstances weren't there. So I mean, in a man's world, in the comedy world, we have a lot of the hashtag Me Too stuff going on, but I've been doing this for 30 years, and I have to say, I've flown, like when I was living in the States before I was working in the UK, I would fly across the country to an airport I've never been to meet a guy that I've never met, in a car that I've never been in, and drive around for 2 weeks with this comedian. Sometimes we'd have to share hotel rooms, stuff like that. And it was just because I'm in the comedy community and you think of it as a family, I never occurred to me that my life would be in danger, because I was like, they're part of the family. Obviously, there's nut crazies and, pedos and whatever out there, but I've been really fortunate. Everybody that I've worked with has been very respectful. You've got comedians that are quite, brash, that have this really hard exterior. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Andrew Dice Clay, who is an American comedian who is very famous over here, big in the 80s, and he's like a big, muscular New Yorker, and he comes across as very misogynist. His stuff is really close to the bone. He makes fun of everybody. And, when I would be hanging out with the comics at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles and I was around him, he'd be making all sorts of, like, I'm going to pick you up and put you on my dick and, like this kind of stuff. But then when we were in private, when I was with my first husband, he'd be like, so how are you doing? How are you guys? Like he was a real human, but he had to keep up that persona while he was amongst the guys and the other comedians. So, and I get that. So I don't be like, oh, you're an asshole, and don't disrespect me like that. I don't see it that way, because I knew it didn't come from a horrible place. It was just a persona, and that he treated me with respect when we were off, when we were alone. Yeah, that sort of thing. So, yeah, you got to make your own way in this business, whether you're male or female, and you just have to persevere. And yes, there's going to be people out there say female comedians are not funny. Well, then you are not exploring enough comedy, because there's gazillions of female comedians out there that are hysterical. But I think one of the issues is Men have no problem laughing at men making fun of women, but they kind of get a little bit their backs up when it's a woman making fun of men, so they feel like they can't relate to that, or they don't want to hear about women's issues. But the thing is when you're performing, your audience is half and half, or 60-40. So why just cater to one particular group? I really hate it when I've got more men in the audience than women, or more women in the audience, because a lot of my stuff I talk to the men specifically. So I really like having a diverse crowd, gender-wise and ethnically. Like, some of the best shows I've had have been multi-race. I think as long as you're coming from an honest place and you're telling your story or your point of view, it will resonate with everybody, or they'll at least be curious. And they'll have fun with you. And if you're honest about your situation, like with Liz becoming disabled in the car. I mean, I got hit by a car in 1994. I got literally run over, pushed, and my scooter got sucked under the front of the car, and I got tossed, 30 feet and landed on my bum and fractured my pelvis. But the guy that hit me told the police that he thought I fell from the sky. Because he didn't see me until he hit me and my ass landed on the windscreen. And that's when he stopped the car. So in his mind, I dropped from the sky. That's hilarious. It's tragic. I survived. But you can't make that shit up. So some of my funniest bits have come from my real life situations.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people appreciate, because I'm not like, oh, look at me, this is what happened. I'm like, look at me, this is what happened. It's hilarious. So yeah, it's about sense of humor.
Cool. What about you, Elizabeth?
I think becoming I don't know that it has much difference being a female when you become disabled, apart from I don't know, and I'm just getting used to all of this. But one of the things that I found, and remember, I've been locked down, so I recently came into the real world, and I haven't been used to people touching me. Before my car crash, I was the kind of person that you didn't really touch. My big new rock boots and my piercings, they took all my piercings out after the crash. And suddenly I'm being touched, and actually coming over, I had to tell someone, hands off my crutch, which actually sounded a little bit like he'd molested me. And I was like, no, I said crutch, not crutch. But it's that thing of suddenly your property. And it's like, there is no need to touch. Also, I don't think people realise which bit of me hurts. So, if you grab my elbow to help me, that's actually got a big metal pin in it. And so all of this stuff of, I don't know that that's because I'm now disabled or because I'm a woman. It's not something I've ever really encountered before. My own experience in comedy, since it's very small. It was 3 weeks getting out of the house before lockdown. Mostly it's a lot of people have been very respectful. But prior to becoming disabled, I really was aware of, and I think a lot of the kind of sexually inappropriate stuff that goes on really is at the open mic stage. I mean, just really quite inappropriate comments made to women backstage. But I think that gets filtered out, actually, because good comedians know not to do it. So maybe, I mean, I'm developing that. I do actually offer, I have a little network of women that I offer support to and help, because one of the things I've been doing while stuck in my flat is just listening to people that have had bad experiences. But I think most of the stuff I'm hearing seems to be that kind of local pub open mic rather than professional comedians. They know better.
Yeah,
but that's just my experience.
It's the bad apple or is it bad egg of the family? I mean, like Tanya said, we're one big family in comedy, but we always let in one or two bad eggs. But they only last a year because we kick them out as soon as something happens. It's like wildfire. It goes round the forum. The next thing you know, they don't exist no more. So I suppose that's a good thing that the forums keep it.
Well, and that
safe.
has to do with social media has now
Yeah.
become, that's the sort of the bad thing and the good thing about social
Mm.
media, because people can put stuff out there, and the thing is, sometimes it's not even true, but if you get that label, you'll get dogpiled on, and I think that's a lot of problems with social media right now in this whole cancel culture. Somebody goes, I didn't like the one joke you did, so therefore I don't want you to be employed anywhere else, anywhere again. And they're thinking, well, how about you just don't watch them? How about you don't support them? Don't try to ruin their careers, which is happening with a lot of people and a lot of my friends and stuff like that. And it's just like, back to the thing about being a woman in the business. And, I guess you would call it sexual harassment. Like, I mean, the way guys would, male comics would talk to me. But the thing is I would give it right back to them. So it never occurred to me that I was being violated, because I'm like, you know what? I can give as good as I can take. So I didn't get offended. It was just this banter. I mean, I realize exposing yourself and all that, there's, different levels of that. Then it's, a bit too much. But as far as when it comes to comedians bantering back and forth, I'm never, I'm not going to take what somebody says. I mean, I'm on shows with people that do midget jokes, and I think other people say, don't you think that's disrespectful? And I go, well, I'm not going to tell them they can't do it. It depends on the joke. If it's clever, I'm laughing along with it. And if it's a shit joke, then I'm going to be like, and the audience, if I've been on, they usually are like, oh God, we can't laugh at that because Tammy Lee was on. Or if I'm coming on later and it was something that maybe I thought was a bit shit, I'll call back to it. Like, I'll make reference to it going, yeah, nice try. You're only saying that because blah, blah, blah. So I think that's, we have to be careful right now with the social media and the claims that people are, putting on other people just because they don't like a comedian, whether it's one joke or their entire act or their persona. Everybody has their own audience, and sometimes it's mainstream or sometimes it's a little bit more an eclectic audience. So if it's not for you, then don't watch them. Don't support them. Like, especially right now with COVID, so many of us entertainers are unemployed. We have no income. But yet, when you try to get a gig, everybody's so hypersensitive right now that they're like, oh, I don't like it, so therefore, I don't want you on that person's show anymore. You don't have the right to talk about that. And it's just like, it just upsets me, because some of us and a lot of us have done this for a very long time prior to people being so hypersensitive, and we've seen it on the other side, and now it's gone so far to this side. We know that it doesn't need to be like that. People need to lighten up. We've lost the ability to laugh at ourselves and other people.
Yeah. Right, we've got two important questions we need to get through. So we're going to go to Tanya. Tell us how you feel about the British accessibility in the country.
How long is this show? How long do we have?
You've got 5 minutes.
Okay, well,
I'll give you 5 minutes.
yeah. Well, when Liz brought that up about the stairs, oh lordy. I mean, as a little person with bad hips, stairs are the bane of my existence. Yeah. So to come to a country that I enjoy so much to perform at, to find out that the gigs are upstairs or downstairs, and I have to get carried up. So I get one guy on under each arm, and they're carrying me up. The problem with that is now I've ruined my shoulder. So my shoulders are so bad that getting picked up to be on stage or picked up to do the stairs has been horrible. And also, I don't drive, and I didn't drive in the UK, so I relied on public transportation, which is trains. You guys have a lovely mass transit system, but the inconsistency between each train company is so massive that it is so frustrating as somebody that goes, okay, I'm going to spend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday trying to get my hotel sorted, find disabled accommodations, get on the train, booking assistance, doing everything that I'm supposed to do to make my life easier. Then I show up at the train station. They're like, we didn't have you booked for assistance, or they don't show up. You're stranded, or you're getting pushed back. You're not allowed. I have a mobility scooter, which is not considered a wheelchair. It's not umbrellaed over. So they go, no, you have a scooter. That's not a wheelchair. You should get an electric wheelchair. I'm like, I can't afford an electric wheelchair. I don't need an electric wheelchair. The mobility scooter is perfect size for me. It's under all the regulations, but each train company wants to have pushback. And I found that's the one thing with me living in the UK, and I have to say, I will never live in the UK again. I am very happy being back on American soil, because when after living in the UK for 4 years, I felt very much like a victim. And I realized that it mentally was playing with my head, because all my energy that I was putting in the Scooter Girl campaign was basically for nothing, because they put me out there in my profile. Look what Tanya Lee's doing. She's fighting for the underdog. But because I didn't go away, and I still trying to fight, and I'm now going, no, this is ridiculous. Now all of a sudden they're pushing back, going, oh, she's not credible, or she's, done this, she's done that. And it's just like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm just trying to make things accessible for a lot of people, and more people are going to become disabled as they get older. So if you can't fix your infrastructure now, it's going to get worse. But I found that I wasn't trying to look for financial compensation. I just wanted stuff to change, and attitudes. I've never felt more disabled than being in the UK, because I was told, you can't do that, you're disabled, you can't do that, you've got a scooter, and I wasn't able to process that. And then I felt after a couple of years I was falling into that, well, I'm disabled, and almost like using it as a well, not as a crutch, but it wasn't me. I felt like I lost my spirit. I lost my drive, because my energy was being sucked over to trying to fight the man and the system so much that I was losing myself and my strong independence and my zest for life. So I love the UK and the comedy audiences. The country's beautiful. The audiences are fantastic. So I will be coming back to do comedy, but it'll be in short spurts, because I just can't handle it mentally.
I know. Well, I just want to say, on behalf of me and other disabled people, thank you for all your hard campaigning while you was over here. I mean, is anyone carrying on your taglines in the UK? Or
My Scooter Girl stuff? Well, not really. I mean, there's people that, via Twitter and stuff, people post saying this is what happened to me today, or, they posted situations. And that was one of the things. I'm like, listen, you have to keep putting it out there. You have to keep calling them out, because they will not fix things unless we show. And I only realized that after I posted the video of me getting berated by the train guard because
Yeah,
I was
saw
parked
that.
in the mobility space, the only one on the train, and I was forced to move to accommodate a woman with a baby pram, which is completely illegal. But because I don't sound British, the guy basically was just like, no, I'm calling the police. And I'm like, what? So he stopped the train, and because I was sitting there basically going, no, this is so wrong. Well, I'm going to call the police. So you have no recourse in the UK. That's I think one of the biggest problems. If that was to happen in the US, because they have the Americans with Disability Acts,
Right.
that they will come down on people like that, and there's consequences.
Good.
And there's no consequences in the UK.
No.
And that's the frustrating part. And when you deal with your Accessibility Equalities Act of 2006, it doesn't encompass everybody or people with mobility scooters and stuff like that, and they don't enforce. Yeah, we have a law, but we don't enforce it. All the trains were supposed to be accessible by 2020. On December 29th or December 30th of 2019, they came out with all these articles going, well, this train company couldn't make their train accessible in time because they only had 25 years to do it. So we've now given them an extension. And it's like, no, you should fine them heavily. They had 25 years to do this. Why, but it's not done. And there's still trains right now that are Northern Rail still not allowing mobility scooters. It's just, it blows my mind.
And now we're in COVID mode. If disabled people do want to go out in the community, I feel like if we complain, it'd be, well, you're not that important because we've got to survive the COVID. And it's like, well, can't you do both?
Right. Well, now it's just, before it was just, it's against health and safety, right? Have we not heard that a gazillion times?
Yeah.
Right? That was very much a UK thing. Now it's actually rolling over to North America because it's a fallback. It's an excuse. They don't have the actual, laws or whatever to say that this is wrong, but they go, no, it's just against health and safety. It's not my fault. It's not my fault for not letting you on the train. It's against health and safety. So it's passing the buck. It's not solving the problem. It's just making an excuse. That's what I have.
Not fair. Yeah. So we've got another question. You did, was it last month? You did a short video on YouTube about non-disabled people. What's the word? Can I just let you go with it?
Is it about my booty? Is it about my booty?
Yeah, and it's about disabled. When people like my sister, let me just do it this way. My twin sister, when we were young, she's like a minute younger than me, but if someone looked at me like staring at me, she's like, go on, do you want to take a picture, love? And it's like, for God's sake, Zoe, they just think I'm gorgeous. Will you leave them alone?
Okay, I got what you're saying now.
It doesn't bother me. Okay.
So okay, now I know what you're going on this. It's about people being offended on our behalf.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what you're getting with.
Yeah.
So, this video that I did, and I talked about the experience that I had a long time ago. But there's a million experiences like this. But I was doing a show in Reading, and they last minute asked the comedians to use a hearing loop because there was a deaf woman in the audience, and the hearing loops are quite cumbersome. For me, it didn't work because I use my boobs a lot in my act. And the other comedians were like, no, we don't want to do it. You should have given us enough notice. We could have tried something. So during the show, a woman in the audience basically started kicking off to the compere about her friend not being able to hear and how, it's not really a good policy. And just, throughout the show, she kept causing a problem about it. And after the show, all the comedians took off, and I was in the green room, and the staff came back and said, there's a woman that wants to talk to the comedians. It's the deaf woman. So I was like, uh-oh. I didn't realize that if it was her and it kicked off. Anyway, she had come back with her daughter, not her friend. And it turns out it was her friend that was the one that was causing a bit of a scene on her behalf. She wanted to apologize on behalf of her friend. She was hugely embarrassed about the way her friend acted. And obviously it's a comedy show, but for a good majority of it, the spotlight was on them. They just went to enjoy a show. She can read lips. She can understand a little bit. She started quoting, bits of my act because I'm very physical on stage. So whether you can hear me or not, you can still laugh at me going, being silly. And she appreciated that. So, and I've had situations where I've been out and about, where I call it, some of my friends go, I call it Mama Bear. They go Mama Bear on, on people. Sometimes I don't mind. And sometimes I'm like, okay, it's not a big deal. Just let it roll. If somebody's sort of following me, I get followed a lot because they're curious. And I was in Romania, and my friend Karen, who's Canadian, we went to high school with together. I'm in a different country, and they have different, ways of, acknowledging people. So sometimes they're very blatant. They're just in your face and kind of like, what's wrong with you? So this guy was literally following me around the store, and she just got all up in his face and was like, what the hell is your problem? And, I don't even think he spoke English. It was Romania. But I appreciated because I knew her heart was in the right place, and I didn't really step back on that situation because I was like, yeah, no big deal. Have at it if it makes her feel better, But then when I did a comedy show a month ago, when I received an email from a woman in San Francisco who happens to be a white woman who wanted to tell me that she thought my biracial joke about me having a black girl booty was insensitive to black people or to African Americans. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, they're the reason I do this joke, because the African American community and the Latino community are the ones that kept saying, look at you and your big beautiful ass. You got an ass like us. It was about, seeing the similarity, not the division. This is the problem. And we live in such a divisive society. And that also with social media perpetuates that. It's like, I love doing shows for the Black community because they love to laugh at themselves and they have so much fun. And if you tear somebody up in the audience, it doesn't even have to be Black people. People love to be made fun of at comedy shows in general. They'll always see comedians out. Can you make fun of my friend? Tear the boss up. But that's becoming less and less because now people are offended on behalf of other people. And that's gotta stop. I'm sorry, but it's a detriment to society and it's a detriment to our profession. So, yeah, I feel very strongly against that.
Yeah. Let's go how you got into comedy. We go to Elizabeth. And, so Elizabeth, tell us how you got into comedy and why.
Oh, why? There's a whole other story behind why I went into comedy.
Right.
Some people know that I used to live in Papua New Guinea. I don't like to go into too much detail, but it involved putting a gun at my head and me having to leave the country. And the resulting, stress disorder meant that I really lost my self-confidence, and I'd gone from being, quite a well-known public speaker to not being able to give a small presentation. And so one of the things I was doing was something called exposure therapy. And suggested stand-up comedy would be like a narcissism of fight. If you can do that, then you're on your way to recovery. And actually, it took me a little while, but finally in a pub in Derby, I just stood up and did my first ever set. And like many people, I was just completely hooked. I just love making people laugh. And I was doing a lot of goth jokes, and to see people laughing at my lifestyle was actually just really nice. So that's how I got into comedy. I think it's what's very interesting, and it kind of goes back to the previous question about when people get offended on other people's behalf. I've done quite a lot of jokes about death, and one of the ones I did in the run up to lockdown was actually, it's a true story. It's not really a joke. The police officer that was first on the scene after my crash told me afterwards that apparently when I was talking to him, I asked him, "Am I dead?" And he said, "We're doing everything we can for you, and no, you're not dead." And I said, "Let me know when I am." Now, I've told that story quite a few times, and then someone came up to me and said, "Really, supposing someone in the audience has just lost someone, they're going to be so offended and upset by that joke." And I said, "Yeah, I didn't die, so if you don't mind, I'm going to continue to tell that joke, because if someone in the audience and is offended, then they can come and tell me." But again, that whole thing of, I do a lot of jokes about driving a hearse. There's an awful, basically, if you look at me in my gig get-up, some dark material is coming your way. I just think that whole thing about being offended for someone else that hasn't even happened yet, it just doesn't make any sense. Actually, comedy has a job to do of being offensive now and then, because satire is about being offensive to something that needs to be changed. Now, if we say this is offensive and has to stop, then we can't do satire. And actually, some people genuinely need to be offended because what they're doing is damaging other people. So sometimes I think we don't want to lose the teeth of real powerful satire by trying to not offend people.
Yeah, and like I said, it goes back to, if you're offended, just don't watch.
Exactly.
Turn it off.
It's like, I get, you shouldn't laugh at yourself, and it's like, you've come to a comedy gig. Why are you here if you don't want to laugh at me?
Yeah, well, that's one thing I noticed in the UK a lot is, you were really funny, but you shouldn't really talk about your condition.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my condition? Okay, first of all, I'm talking about how awesome my life is, all the funny situations I get into because of my size, and that makes you uncomfortable, so therefore I'm supposed to stop what I'm doing? Sorry, not buying it. That's your issue. You're projecting your insecurities onto me. And, and it's like, no, I've been doing this long enough now. I've reached audiences all over the world. Some people may not like me because I'm too crude, or I'm too honest, or I make them uncomfortable because of the way I look. I don't give a shit. Then don't watch me. Move on. Change the channel. There's a lot more people out there that get it that don't get it. But right now, the media is just, it's like this mob mentality, and people have no life because they're in lockdown, that all they have now is on the internet. And it's like, well, I'm not happy, so I'm going to make as many people miserable as I am. And it's like, I'm not buying into that stuff. I don't care if we're in lockdown. You still need to be decent human beings and change the channel. Don't tweet. You don't need to take time out of your day to tell me that you're offended about something. It's not going to be any good, because I know where it's coming from, and I'm not being offensive in any regard. It's called humor.
It is. It's hard. But like Tommy said to me last time we did a podcast, and I asked you, Tanya, what would you say to a disabled person who wants to get into comedy? What would be your message?
Okay, well, my message is the same for a non-disabled person as it is for a disabled person. Is we all have different life experiences, right? So it's tell your story. Share your experiences. Like I said earlier, we live in a world where, people are voyeurs and they're curious about what happens. So obviously, if you're disabled, they're even more curious. So, I talk about shopping, going clothes shopping, and the changing room door comes up to here. So I've got my ass hanging out. That's my reality. That's a funny situation. And so you have to do your point of view as a comedian, and you need to find out what makes you unique but also relatable. So as far as engaging and stuff like that, there's always eye contact with your audience, and all those things are super important. But it's about being engaging and welcoming people in, and some comedians make their careers on being offensive. That used to be an actual offensive comedians in the 60s, 50s. Joan Rivers is a classic example. She was an offensive comedian. But people got it. They knew that it was all tongue in cheek, but she made fun of everybody. So that you just have to find your niche and find your audience. And nowadays everybody's going to get pushback, but it's just finding out what makes you unique and finding out what makes you laugh.
Cool.
What situations that if you're disabled, what situations that do you get in that are different? Like for Elizabeth now, what's different now because you're disabled than because you can see life from two sides. So I think you have an entire, chasm of interesting material that you can come up with because you've seen the other side, right?
Yes.
Whereas I haven't seen the other side.
No.
But I can only imagine. I mean, right now, for the last 3 months, I'm living in my parents' house. Well, my parents are tall, and this is not a dwarf-friendly house at all. I mean, everything, like our kitchen table is bar stools. The toilets are exceptionally high. The bed, I have to crawl up a ladder to get into the bed. So I'm not working, but I'm exhausted all the time having to crawl up on stuff around the house. And I'm going to write some jokes about it because it's a new situation for me. I've never lived with my dad before. I didn't know my dad loves his cats more than he could ever love his children. It's just funny situations, and your life evolves, your life changes, and you roll with the punches. I'm not a young comedian anymore, so the younger generation of woke comedians, I'm just a dinosaur now, so they don't want to hear what I have to say, except for the comedians that really, respect that I've paid my dues. I wasn't handed anything. I worked hard for what I've achieved. I'm proud of what I've achieved. Anybody doing a job for 30 years, I deserves a pat on the back. And, you just have to find what makes you unique and then learn the style or the performance skills. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, Benny.
Very useful.
No.
Benny, stop shaking.
Yeah, we're back. Sorry about that, folks. Believe it or not, we've still got 10 people. So, and Helen says it's very good. So, are you okay, Lisa, to carry on a bit longer?
Yeah, I'm actually fine. I've had a sleep this afternoon. I'm 2 hours ahead of you, Benny, and we've got all these time zones going, which is amazing. It's fantastic.
I know. Are you okay, Tanya?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I've got family members wandering around, but that's fine. Nope,
carry on. And hopefully the weather stops being disableism.
So far, so good. I haven't lost power.
So Tanya Lee, tell us, and I love this story, about, I'm laughing already, how you got into comedy.
All right, I'll do my standard answer then.
I love it. I love it.
Well, I mean, honestly, I've always been outgoing as a kid, and I guess because of being so cute and a little person, I was always the center of attention. And when I look back at my life now, I'm like, okay, now it all makes sense why I've been so self-absorbed and me. It's because I've always got so much attention, and so I loved being in the spotlight. So I wanted to be an actress. And I grew up on American sitcoms. My parents got divorced when I was young, so I got plunked in front of the TV, and I loved to laugh. So when I graduated from high school, my parents, of course, were like, well, you need to go to university and get a real job. So I was like, the only thing I'm interested in is performing. So I thought, ooh, I'll study theater when I go to university. Problem is, when you go to university, you have to study theater. You don't actually perform. You have to study books for 3 years before you actually, in your 4th year, get to perform. So I was like, dang it. So I dropped out, and then I went back, and I have a sociology degree. A lot of good that's doing me. But I started doing community theater. And I got the lead in the first production I ever auditioned for. I was Perry the Penguin. I had the waddle down. Perfect. And I started dating a guy that was in the production. He played the villain, and apparently he had a thing for penguins. So, one night he says to me, I'm going down to a comedy club to do an open mic. I'd never been to a comedy club. I'd never watched stand-up comedy. I didn't even know that genre existed. I was 19 at the time. And so it was 1989, or whatever, 89. And I started doing community theater. I went and saw this guy at the comedy club, my first time in a comedy club. And it was an open mic, so there was a bunch of comedians. And then when this guy got on stage, he ran the light, he wasn't funny, and he was doing all these things where I'm like, it just didn't seem natural to me. It seemed really contrived. And he was shit, basically. But it got me. I'm like, you just get up and you perform like that. You just use your voice. And so I got really excited when he came off. I was like, you were terrible. And he's like, thanks. He's like, you think you could do better? So he got me a comedy book, and I started writing some material. And 3 weeks later, I went up at the comedy club, and I did 5 minutes. And my first joke was, hey, do you guys know that there was a midget here? I know. I walked in, and they were like, look at the midget. I'm like, where? So that was my first joke. And it, really diffused the situation. So 3 months into stand-up, I actually started getting paid. And 4 months into it, this guy goes and dumps me. Yeah, couldn't handle the competition. Turns out he started dating a seal. Yeah. So anyway, that's how I got started in comedy. And once I did it, I was like, yeah, this is it, man. I got freedom. There's really no restrictions, and I could talk about my life. And I just, the response I got from people was, because they never saw anybody like me just getting up and saying it like it is, and talking so freely, and talking about loving my disabled body. Because when you think about it, people can't imagine us loving the bodies that we were so tragically given, right? When in fact is, I got it going on. I got all the fat and flaps in all the right places, and I work it, and I think that's about confidence, body confidence, and having, I wouldn't change it if I could take a pill tomorrow. I wouldn't change, because I just think I have something really good to offer, and life is a struggle, but it's made me stronger in so many other ways by just having to have the perseverance, to turn on a light switch, to do these things that I couldn't normally reach, because I've adapted to my own tall people's environment. So I feel very blessed. That's why when people start getting critical, it's like, you have no idea. Like, this enjoying life and laughing at each other and ourselves, that's the best way to live through life. Because if you're constantly like, oh my God, I'm offended, or you're triggered by various things, that's no life. You're not living. You're not living. And I'm sorry, but I love to live.
Yeah, I mean, before I became a comedian, I was very ashamed of my disability. I wouldn't go out much. I would stay in. I would just go to work, and that was it. Now, because of Boris Johnson, thank you, to cut my care package right down. Well, he took it off me. And then I thought, oh well, never mind. I've got enough to pay for support in the morning. What am I going to do at night? And my friend at work said, why don't you go into stand-up comedy? No, no, I'll leave it. So I went to see Elizabeth Vantaa Black and Tommy in a barn, was it? Made that number 18. They were all hippies, and I'm like, am I at the right place? So I fell right in, and that's it. Now I'm Benny Shakes, the redneck. So yeah, I love it. Love it.
It really opened. I mean, that's the thing is it gives. I gained so much self confidence and more like body confidence on stage, because I realized that when I started dressing, differently, and stopped wearing elasticated waist and started wearing tighter jeans and stuff that I was really insecure about, that it really, people responded to that, and they loved the fact that I was like, yeah, check out my boobs. I got cleavage, that sort of thing. And they're like, oh, good for you. And it's like, well, why not? I got it going on. So I think with all of us, comedy is a way of giving us that self-confidence, because they always call us brave. We're very brave.
Yeah, and it's
but they also say we're very brave for getting out of bed.
Yeah.
So, we're brave because we're enjoying our lives.
Exactly. You're an inspiration. And it's you what?
Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. People cannot put themselves in our shoes. They cannot honestly think how they would cope if they were in our shoes. I mean, Elizabeth is, of course, in a different situation.
Yeah.
And so your appreciation has changed. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, when I first met Benny, and it was my third gig, and we got chatting, and then he was like saying, "How can you support me?" and everything, and then to see how that's turned around, and he's now supporting me. I think of been an inspiration. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to survive. But I do think that your positivity, Tanya, that actually really has helped me. I had massive issues. I had lots of body issues after the crash, where I genuinely thought I was disgusting to look at. And I think particularly because fresh scars are quite horrible, I couldn't bear to, and I had to kind of do therapy to love my arm again, and to come to, but actually your comedy was one of the things that helped me, and Benny's joking about things, it actually does help people like myself. We're just getting used to new world, and also comedy has helped me survive it, like joking about it. One of the things I said is, like they were still putting bits of car out of my head a week later, and I used to say now a dashboard, part woman, part polo. but that was actually my way of coping. The humor, that was all that kept me going. I mean, there's nothing weirder than you wake up in hospital with tubes coming out of every single place of you, and you're having to be told over and over again what happened to you. You've got to have a sense of humor about it.
Yeah, and that's it. It is a coping thing for a lot of us, and it's a great coping mechanism. I mean, the reason why we have laughter is the best medicine. That's been around since the dawn of time. That's expression, and it's because it's true. You know, and it is. It's you know, when you laugh and stuff like that, it's an endorphin release. Endorphins are happy hormones.
Yeah.
You know, it gives you a buzz like doing a line of cocaine, but it's not as detrimental. You know, that sort of thing. It's a boost, and yeah, we all feel so much better when we're positive, and when you sink into a dark place and you feel sorry for yourself and why did this happen and why am I like this. Nothing good comes from it. You have to turn around. You have to turn it around. And I mean, I look forward to seeing your comedy, Liz. And I mean, you're not dressed like a goth now, but even that alone, you know, that alone, just as somebody going up there, whether you're disabled or not, as a goth person, I'm curious. I want to hear more about your gothness. You know, because I just like people can't relate to me as a dwarf. I can't relate to you as a god. So I want to learn more about it. And if you tell it in funny stories. And then, of course, you've had a head injury. Oh, fuck yeah, you come through it. You come through the other side. Like, let's celebrate this stuff as opposed to making it seem like, you know, it's a major downer. I mean, obviously horrible situation that happened to you. But why does that horrible situation now have to define everything in your life in a negative way? It's happened. There's nothing you can do about it now. The only thing you can do is go from all the way up from here. And
absolutely,
you know, comedy helps.
It really helps. And you know, there is that thing of you know, I'm doing really well. The comedy apparently is helping with refiring the neural networks. I don't know if this makes any sense to anyone, but writing jokes and making jokes is a really good way of helping, like, rehab for a brain injury. So I'll maybe start doing workshops for other people at some point. But
remembering material and remember where to go from there. I mean, I'm not comparing my situation, but I've landed on my head over the last couple of years. I've had some I fell backwards off stage and slid back into a wall about 3 years ago. And I was concussed for about 4 months after that. I couldn't remember my bank details. I couldn't remember certain things, what I was talking. I couldn't, you know, figure out where I was going the next sentence. Luckily, it didn't affect my stand-up because that was sort of ingrained, but it made me, even now, I still feel like I've got a bit of a disconnect somewhere in there. But, you know, once again, you just have to figure out a way to overcome these situations, because I'm not going to crawl up and, you know, in a corner and just, you know, my life's over. That's just not me.
Yeah. It's hard. Yeah. Where are we? Comedy. So, what have you guys been watching while we've been on lockdown? I mean, I know you, Tanya, you've been doing a lot of YouTube videos.
When I was living in the UK, I decided because it was locked down and I needed to make sure that I held myself accountable. I'd lost a lot of weight, so I wanted to keep the weight off. So I started doing dance videos. You know, I had copyright infringement running out all the time, but it was just like, you know, at least one song of me just walking out and just trying to encourage people to move. You know, because whether you're disabled or not, I had a lot of people that were basically confined to their beds that said, "I love just watching you move." Yay! And I said, well, as long as you're just doing this or doing that, whatever you can move, I want you to shake it for 3 minutes or 2 minutes of this song. So I got a lot of really positive feedback for that. Unfortunately, since I moved to Florida, it's too hot to do dance videos because I've been living outside on the porch. Hopefully I'll get back to those. But, we've been watching a lot of Netflix stuff, just finishing up The Man in the High Castle. which is I didn't think I'd like, but it's actually it's really interesting and it's very it's good. There's Netflix and Amazon. I'm living on that.
So what is your YouTube channel?
Is LIL Comedian, so Little Comedian,
Right.
on YouTube, and then my Facebook fan page. I post all my stuff. I haven't done any Facebook Lives in a while. I need to. I actually miss it. I have a gig next Thursday. I think it's the 26th, and it's going to be broadcast from the UK. I'm doing it via Zoom. If you go to my fan page on Facebook, you can buy tickets. So it's a ticketed event because I need to make some money.
Yes. If there's anyone who wants to donate a £5 or £1 to tonight, my link is below or in the comments page. So yeah. What about you, Elizabeth? Because I know you've been doing a few goth questions and that.
Yeah, so I did some videos on how to survive isolation tips from goths. So I've been doing Goths Got This because we do isolation quite well. And then World Goth Day, I answered people's questions about being a goth. And actually, what was really interesting, the questions were brilliant. People they're quite funny themselves, the things they were sending in. So yeah, and the Chrome Polish webcast, which is possibly the most bonkers thing I've ever done. I can't even tell you what it is. It's just really surreal radio broadcasts. I think, you could describe it as if Monty Python took an awful lot of LSD. They'd polish. So that's kind of been what I've been doing. I have been binge watching What We Do in the Shadows because that is exactly my kind of comedy, and I just love that kind of vampire, the in-joke stuff. So that's been really good. Yeah, that's what I've been watching. But I don't know what I'm doing with my time. By the time I've got made myself do my physiotherapy, and because I'm just very slow on my feet, the days have been going quite quickly.
Yeah, I find that now they're just going too quick. I mean, where has the year gone? We're nearly at Christmas.
Oh,
no.
Coming up.
Yes, I know. Humbug.
Halloween first.
Yeah. How will we do that? I mean, Tanya, Halloween comes from America, so how will they do it on lockdown?
Well, I mean, right now it's like they want everybody to wear masks. Halloween.
Yeah, that's true.
That shouldn't be a problem, right?
No, yeah.
You hold your bucket out. Maybe people can throw the the candy from the front stoop, and you just try to catch it. But if you're wearing a mask, shouldn't be a problem.
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, it's a gift for goths. We've been waiting to legitimately go around in our masks for a long time. So I think we're one of the very, very happy groups of people. My friends plague doctor outfits. I've got a big respirator. We're all wearing our most ridiculous masks to just walk down the street now. It's wonderful.
It's great. Absolutely.
It's good. Are you up for an awkward question, Tanya?
Am I up for a what question?
An awkward question from someone.
Sure.
I won't mention his name because he doesn't want to know. If you had nothing to complain about, what would you be happy?
If I didn't have anything to complain about, would I be happy? Oh, hell yeah. That's it. We all find things to nitpick at, but it depends on how much emotional energy you're going to invest into it. That's what I felt like with the Scooter Girl campaign. It got to the point where I was investing too much emotional energy into trying to help and not getting anything, like I'm not saying I wanted something back for me, but any results, you know.
Yeah.
And so therefore I had to take a step back. And once I go back to the UK and I get back on the trains, I'm certainly going to tweet and call out bad service, because I think that's still important, because I'm hoping for change. But you know, in general, I mean, I try not to complain. I mean, I'm a woman too, so
people think we are complaining, but to me, if I don't do it, what's going to happen to the disabled child who's gonna grow up? What are they going to be like when they're 30? Will it be the same issues, or us, if we complain now, they might have a better start in life, they might have the right opportunities for jobs, they might fall in love quicker instead of getting knockbacks after knockbacks and things like that. That's why I complain, and I ain't stopping.
yeah. Well, like I said, it depends on what you're complaining about. If it's
Yeah.
something for, you know, you're not just picking one little stupid thing, or this little stupid thing, or complaining that somebody put mayonnaise on your sandwich, or you know, you've got a peanut allergy. So this is an example. Somebody that has a peanut allergy that goes onto an airplane. Well, pre-COVID, right? If they make an announcement, I'm not allowed to eat my granola bar that I brought on the plane because the one person on board has a nut allergy. So that means 400 people on the airplane are not allowed to consume nuts or nut products. How about that one person wears a mask? Obviously pre-COVID, or well, now COVID. Why don't they take precautions for themselves instead of trying to impose their situation on the massive amount of people? And so you have to choose on what your complaint is about. I mean, we're trying to, you know, with my whole idea with the Scooter Girl campaign, it wasn't just because I want to do stuff. I mean, yeah, clearly it's going to benefit me as a scooter user, but there's a lot of people that are being forced to get other, like, wheelchairs, or choosing not to go anywhere because they have a mobility scooter, and that is not right. So I'm going to complain about that on behalf of it's still a minority, but it's a big minority that is not being represented. And you know, I'm not a fan of identity politics, but that, you know, we live in, it's 2020. Things should be accessible. Disabled people have been around a long flipping time, and there's no reason, and it's an attitude as well. So
I think
one of the things that one of the things that's really struck me coming into this kind of world for the first time is how much prejudice there is. I've been shocked at the sort of things that I've heard people say, and one of the things that really upsets me is this. I mean, I had that first-hand experience of, you know, COVID only is killing people with underlying conditions, as if people with underlying conditions, which were me with my punctured lung, we didn't matter anymore. And one of the things that was a massive eye-opener to me was there is this sort of almost prejudice, and that needs to be complained about, because our lesson here, it can happen to anyone. You know, you're going through your life saying that disabled people that they shouldn't have this, or they're a drain on society. And there's so many horrible things I've heard, and then it could happen to you. And that is, to me, one of the things that really needs to be highlighted. And that's what I'm kind of complaining about, because this is a new and quite shocking world to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the thing is you got into a car accident, which was an accident, and people have accidents. But then there's also the people that are, let's say, normal, that are naturally going to become disabled because of old age. you know, but they don't think about that. So people like us that are already ahead of the game, and we're already hip to the scene of the disability shit, we're the ones trying to help you in the future when you become old and you have to use a cane or a Zimmer frame or, you know, a wheelchair or a mobility scooter. We're the ones that are trying to champion to make your life better as you get older. And, you know, so to get any pushback infuriates me.
It's crazy. I think that's all the questions I've got. One more, actually. How I'm going back to live gigging next Sunday. How do you guys feel about getting back gigging?
I can't wait. I mean, like I said, I'm doing 2 shows next week, and I was supposed to do one the next. These are all on Zoom though.
Right.
I'm excited because I'm going to be talking to people and seeing new faces, but I cannot wait to get on stage, like in front of people and connect with people's eyes and hear them. Not, you know, weird through the, you know, we're all avatars right now. It's just weird, you know, and I like being seen from head to toe, but it doesn't work as well in this type of format for me because I'm very physical and very animated. So I want to get back out there, and I want people to, you know, want to go to comedy shows and to laugh and get back in and just get back to normal.
Yeah. Elizabeth?
Well, just because of my life and the way it is at the moment, I'm not going to be returning to comedy immediately, probably in the new year. But I'd always said, because I'm vulnerable, I've many different criteria to being vulnerable, probably wouldn't be in front of audiences, but I do really miss it. I miss the banter. And a lot of my comedy is about audience interaction, and it's not the same on Zoom.
No.
You froze again.
Oh, no.
Hello.
Okay, you froze because we're fine.
You.
All right. Can you still hear me?
I'm like, I'm moving. I can see you, Liz.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
So I think that's it, really.
Cool. Well, do you know what? It's been
for this week.
Thank you so much, and Tanya Lee, it's an absolute joy and such a privilege to kind of meet you.
I'll keep it down. Well, if you want any advice, you can, you know, we're friends now. Message me, same with
Brilliant.
Them. You know, I love talking comedy stuff.
It's fantastic.
Like I actually host a writing group on, like, I started it in Norwich where I was living, and so every Wednesday the local comics and I would get together at a bar and we'd write material for a couple hours and then we'd perform at the Huma comedy shows. Well, obviously COVID, that's not, but the great thing is we can still do our writing sessions like this. And that's actually perfect. So every Wednesday or sometimes Thursdays, we've been, so if either of you want to jump in on my writing group, feel free, like, you know, just let me know. I can add you to our group, even though it's called the Norwich Writing Group. We'll let other people in because it's,
I don't mind. Don't go nowhere, you two. I will say goodbye, and then me and you guys will say goodbye in a bit. That's it, folks, this week. Just quick, there are still tickets to come and see me and some comedians on the 13th of September. The gates open at 4 p.m. You can get your tickets online at Rock Central. So We will all say goodbye, and we will see you in a fortnight with some other guests. Thank you for watching.